and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lune, and with me is Blanca Beyar. We go by many names here, and we'd like to welcome you to this project that we're working on called the Emerald Paradigm. We're very excited to get started. This is our first one, so we're very excited here today. And I have a little bit of nerves, so bear with me here. But the topic of this video or this teaching is going to be centered on identity. The fact that identity is such an important part about how we go through our day-to-day, how we identify as ourselves, the names we go by, the qualities we allow into the format of our identity as well. And moving on, we'll talk about some deeper stuff in terms of identifying with past lives and many magical things in that regard. But as an introduction, Blanca and I met about a year ago. She puts on a beautiful, absolutely beautiful expo here in Staten Island, and that's how we met. I volunteered.
Yes, and I absolutely love that you did.
Yeah, it was just so perfect. It was so perfect and subtle. It wasn't this, you know, you're very popular, so it wasn't this, like, need for your attention. It was just like, I'm here. When if you need me, I'm here, kind of thing.
I love the way that evolved, too, because you offered to volunteer, and that put up my spiritual radar to say, who is she?
Right. Like, what? She's not clamoring for...
Well, you know, there's presenters and there's speakers who want to come in to the expos to speak. So the fact that you wanted to volunteer said something to me about you. And that I needed to keep my spiritual antennas up. So, you know, so that I could see, observe who you were. And of course, I absolutely am in awe and so much love and gratitude that you are so multidimensional and so beautiful and so magnificently beautiful to me.
Thank you, and I feel the same about you. It's been such a beautiful relationship to develop with you, and I'm just so grateful. And I love this project. I'm just so excited. I'm very, you know, I have that going on right now. To introduce the concept of identity here, we can start by sharing about something very simple, the names that we identify with, even just right there, that first level. I was born with the name Jillian, but as my spiritual identity, I guess I could say, had come forth, I never really resonated with Jillian nor my surname. It's so it's very clear, like, where's your heritage? Where's your history? Where's your father from? And I don't like that. I like a little ambiguity in my name, you know? So Innate came from, and I get this question many times on my other channel, like, what does that mean? Where do you get this? I love that it sounds like illuminate, first of all. I love the composition of illuminate, you know, I love that. To me, when I think of Lunate, it's like the moon in the sky, the moon in the darkness, but in our bodies and in our deepest, darkest places of us, and not in a shadow work necessarily type of way, but just the void that we are, you know, the space that we are a part of. I see that moon in the sky, and it's like this
did
knowledge.
Did it come to you, that name?
It did.
So it was inspired.
It was inspired.
I love that.
Yeah, it was. And I just, it's like, it's there. It's always been there. So that's where the innate part comes from. You're born with it. It's this light within us. And, you know, that's kind of where that came from. I know you have many names as well.
I do. And you know what? It's funny that we're starting there because I like to sometimes bring, you know, like fun into it by saying that I'm Sybil.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we know Sybil, you know, used to have multiple identities, split personalities. And I have a lot of names, and yet I have none, you know?
Right,
you know? And so for the sake of the work I do, you know, the books that I write, you know, Blanca Beyar, and then I have so many sacred names that mean so much to me that were or gifted to me by gurus, Lavenia, you know, which I absolutely love, you know.
Beautiful.
Which is light teacher, teacher of light. And then Sita, which was given to me by a guru, which I didn't like because my observation of names, especially under the spiritual umbrella, and perhaps even in the physical realm, is that our name not only defines us, but also takes us on a journey.
Absolutely.
You know, almost like a spiritual quest. And that was very true for my guru named Sita. I was a little excited, like, ooh, Sita, you know, until I discovered that Sita was a goddess that was put up in exile because she was married to someone of royalty, and, you know, the community did not accept her. And it was a tragic, very sad story.
Yeah.
And so, believe it or not, I was given the name, and it actually assimilated in my life. And it was very painful, you know, and I actually was in a relationship where the name actually took life, almost as if this, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was happening. And so I've learned to respect names, and I recognize and I try to invite others to see that a name is almost like a spiritual quest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know? And there was some type of completion, I'm sure, through that quest of what you've, you know, like you went on the quest and it came, I don't know the story yet, but like it came around in some way to...
It did, you know, because the name also represents devoted wife. And, you know, we're talking about thousands of years ago where, you know, this story takes place. It took me to a past life. And, of course, if we think about thousands of years ago, we know that that was the way the paradigm was, where women took a back seat, right? So, in essence, the name was not only taking me there to remember and to heal the fact that I was in exile, but to claim myself.
Right,
you know?
right.
And as a consequence of that, I felt, because of the work that I do, that I was holding a field to invite all female divines to claim their divinity.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it.
But I don't like that name.
Yeah.
Even though, you know.
No, I get it. I get it. Yeah. It's like,
it was a lot of
we're
work.
over. We got past it.
Yeah, so we can learn that, you know, names that we're blessed with, or that we're given birth, right, may just be a name, but I do feel that it carries, or it invites us to go on a journey, which we could invite the audience to, you know, right away, you know, see how their name resonates to some kind of spiritual invitation, maybe perhaps a past life, right?
Absolutely.
Or maybe something that is being asked to complete in this timeline.
Right, absolutely. And it's great practice to be okay with that by choosing a name set. You know, we are given names. I understand that, and I appreciate that, because I think it is, like you said, it's a type of lesson. It's an introduction to a path. There's something we learn from it, surely, in even the tiniest regard, but typically much bigger. But in terms of a practice that they could do to kind of get started is, you know, I'd see, like, what are you drawn to? Like, is there any name that, you know, not to pick it out of a hat necessarily if you're giving it yourself, but like, is there something that speaks to you? And it's okay to present yourself in that way. Whether it's simple as changing your Instagram handle to it or introducing yourself as it. It's very difficult for me. I find myself torn between Jillian and Lune, because so many people know me as Lune. But my first reaction is like, oh, I must say I'm Jillian, as if I'm not being authentic if I, you know, choose a different name to introduce myself as.
Well, you know, that's really interesting, because I use a threefold panel, if you may, that I use to introduce people when we're doing healing work. And I tell them that the first panel represents the foundation that they were given, almost like the name. And that first panel really doesn't represent, it may, but a lot of times it doesn't represent who you truly are.
Right.
Because when we're born, we don't know anything, even though we know everything.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But your beliefs, your foundation, your culture, your everything is based on what is given to you. And so the middle panel now becomes the invitation where you start to discover yourself. And so we could almost say that what we're inviting the audience to do is to start discovering themselves, you know. And like a name, it could be something, as you said, that calls out to you, because when we're in that place of discovery, we're exploring ourselves, like, who am I, and what do I believe in, and what inspires me.
It's like taking the next step, like you said, how you come into this world with this culture, this history kind of pre-established from your family.
Absolutely.
And they give you a name, and that's what you have to work with. Exactly. Regardless, it's like your resources, and in a kind of way, it's kind of just similar to your family resources, the location you are, and the name that you have, and this is how you are. You this is what you have to work with, and then you bring in this next level of expansion of, oh, you know what? I can leave this behind a little bit, or I can use it interchangeably, or however. And now it's like claiming this new part of yourself. And I think that's so important as we get older, particularly as women, because I think that, you know, I could be wrong, but from what I see, a lot of our identity is formed on, you know, what we look like, or these things that are going to change no matter what. So to be inventing yourself and be taking on these things is so empowering and beautiful. And for men as well. I don't mean to disclude them, but...
Absolutely. I think that I love what you're saying, you know, discovering yourself and just the journey of that. And you know what? You can change your name 100 times.
You can, right? Yeah.
Because we're not really talking about going to court, you know.
No, it's just how you add your identity.
But using it, as we talk about identity, is almost using this spiritual or quest name as you start to discover. How fun would that be, right? As you start to discover your passion, you know, and your calling,
right,
and all these other aspects of your thought form, you know,
all the facets of your personality, your interests,
It's almost like you're giving, and I like this, rebirth to yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
And
I love that.
While we honor the fact, and you know, we're not talking at all about, you know, abandoning your namesake, your birth name, but what a beautiful, right?
I love it.
Almost like signature to the fact that you've begun your spiritual journey or self-exploration, and to baptize yourself. You
and
know?
it's playful too. I love the playful energy of it as well.
And you know, I started to talk about the fact that there were 3 panels, and as I'm sitting here, right, I see that there could even be an application, you know, where the 3 panels is 3 levels of healing. There could even be a 3rd for the namesake. And that is, so what would that represent? Well, we could go on a self-exploration and find nirvana there. And so on this beautiful introductory show, that's a disclaimer that I want to put out there right away. You know, we don't need anyone or anything. You know, can that be useful? Absolutely. Yes. And has it helped many, including you and I? Without a doubt. Right? But when we get to that pivotal place where, you know what, we've discovered, and now we're hungry because we know that there's something much more to us, and we're standing in a pretty firm foundation of like, wow, this is me, and I want to take this discovery even further. Well, sometimes we're inspired to reach out to a mentor, a guide, a teacher. We're known by many names. A guru, right? Perhaps we're inspired to do a shamanic apprenticeship. And it's in all of these new explorations that then we may be given after the completion of, say, an apprenticeship. Yes? Or after working sometime with a guru where we may be gifted with yet another name. And that then becomes our spiritual name, you know. And we can have many of those, you know. I have 3 or 4 of them, my favorite being the golden one, which I don't use very much. But it was my first guru name, and it came from ancient Egypt. And
I feel so much of that with you, so it makes perfect sense.
It is. It's, you know, you cut my, you know, like my veins and opened up my DNA. you would find ancient Egypt there. You know, it sounds like, oh, the golden one, like, ooh, the golden.
I know, yeah.
But it's so etheric. It's so healing.
It is.
You know?
Absolutely.
And, yeah. And so that third panel could be after we've accomplished, you know, when we've done incredible work, perhaps through a mentor, and almost like we're given a certificate, right? When we go to school, we're blessed with a name. I know that you were blessed, right? When we just finished.
Absolutely. I received my third name, I guess I would say, and that is Lomasi, which means pretty flower, which at first I didn't identify with. I was like, I'm more than a pretty flower, you know, and then it really, like you said, the trip, the journey, it made so much sense between the quietness, but that doesn't keep it from doing, you know. I'm not really an in-your-face kind of person, you know, but I still have a scent, I still have color, I still draw you in some way, or teach, or in the medicinal like you know, it made so much sense, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad I got this.
I think that when I hear Lamasi for you as a flower, it's the greatest gift and reflection of the name that goes synonymous with you, is that you're always blossoming. You know?
It goes on and on. It keeps giving this name. It really does.
Right,
like
so you can speak firsthand, as I can as well, those names. So it's funny because here we are. Do they define us? No, we really have no identity. And yet, can they give us definition? You see, and that's different.
Right.
And they certainly can, because they allow us to embrace a journey, growth, you know, and experiences.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So, take some time to meditate on it. If it resonates with you, if you feel drawn to this type of experience or to bring this in, you might be working with it already, but it is a really powerful thing to work with a name, to understand it, whether it's given to you. You can ask a teacher if you're working with one to, you know, guide you on that place of, I want to identify. I want something to work with or work towards or have something going on there. Or it can come from within. It doesn't have to be given to you as well. So it's a beautiful thing to get into. So on the subject of identity, I myself, I'm an energy worker. We're energy workers. We have many things going on, but as one of the things that I identify with, or that I have on my website or in my description, because, you know, we need something to share about what we do, right, is energy work. I started with Reiki. I'm a shamanic apprentice at this point, and a lot of other things that I like to study as well, but those will certainly come up as we go along. But one thing that I see very often with my clients is them taking on aspects into their identity which do not serve them, which don't belong to them, which hold no purpose. I mean, there might be a lesson involved. And what I'm speaking of here are qualities we wouldn't want to have, but that we allow in our identity. That can be different things about mental illness in terms of depression or even anxiety, and identifying with that, like, oh, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm this. And by affirming these things, we are allowing them to come into our identity. I mean, like in energy work, I see it in the back here, almost like a cape that we wear. In a very simple way, we can look at that as being clumsy. You know, I certainly have people in my life who very much identify with being clumsy, and let me tell you, they are, because they're affirming it. It's like this thing that we're affirming and we're allowing to become part of us. So a good practice that I find in terms of, first of all, being aware of that. Like, what are you letting into your identity? What are you allowing to become part of the energy that you are, or the things that you see yourself as? And our brains are squishy jelly, you know, fatty tissue. They can be rewired, they can be rerouted. But when we affirm, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm clumsy, I'm unhealthy, I'm this, I can't sleep, anything like that we're affirming, that's an experience, and it's not a good idea from my perspective to take that into your identity. So when we think about our identity, just like we can give ourselves a name, we can incorporate more beneficial qualities that we would like to have. It sounds very complicated, but like I said, our brains can reroute instead of affirming a negative or a bad quality or something that we dislike about ourselves or we'd like to move beyond. That's forming this path. It's like it's cutting a groove in the mind. So it's things and thoughts and patterns and actions are going to fall through this depressed, anxious, or clumsy. These are the examples I'm choosing right now, but these paths, it will just kind of, it's like a riverbed, and we'll just keep running through. With proper implementation of of what we would like, bring in awareness. Oh, I'm feeling depressed at the moment. Okay, I can work with a feeling. A feeling passes. Let's just release the identity part and say, I'm feeling this. It's a validation, absolutely. We want to validate these things. Ooh, I feel anxious. Ooh, I need to do something. That's okay.
Exactly.
That is okay. That's natural.
It's not about, and the discussion is not about inviting others to deny what they feel, because the last thing we want to do is to deny the way we feel. And actually, the most optimal thing that we can do is that when we're having a feeling rise, that we acknowledge it.
Absolutely.
But speaking of identity, which is perfect, it's acknowledging the feeling without necessarily identifying with it.
The attachment. We're not letting it...
Right? And more so, it doesn't identify you, because the feeling is moving through you.
Right.
Almost like the water, like, I love analogies, because when we step out of, the seriousness of this, and if we, turn the faucet on, right, and the water is running, like, we're not the water.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We're standing in it, or we're out of it.
It's flowing. We may, take a cup and fill it, and, and then ingest it, so that may be us, but the water is flowing. And so the feeling flows as well. And what happens is that we then identify. It sounds kind of like, oh, so what's the big deal? But the truth is that our thoughts, as we know, have a lot of power.
Absolutely.
And it's not even the thought, but it's the thought behind the thought behind the thought.
With the feeling.
Really
all combines it together.
In many ways, we are built like a tape recorder, and we don't realize that part of consciousness, of being aware, is breaking the pattern of the self-talk. That's what I call it.
Absolutely.
The unconscious self-talk that takes place in the subconscious, which, by the way, has a lot of influence.
Huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say more influence than the conscious thought, unless we're being conscious.
Right. Does
that make sense?
Unless we're being very deliberate in rerouting.
Exactly.
So in terms of, like, I like to use this analogy because it's so simple, but or this example rather, but clumsy. I'm clumsy. You start dropping stuff. If you take a time to, I call it add the good. Add the good. Just like you would do if you're trying to get more vitamins in your system or get more fresh air. Adding that. It starts to create a new path, a new pattern,
without
everything.
Without a doubt, a new recording.
Right, exactly. And it seeps into your subconscious. So instead of saying I'm clumsy, if you take that time to add the good, I am graceful, or instead of depressed, I am happy and content and balanced, or whatever it is, and really let yourself, like you're saying, think it and feel it. Like, set aside a few moments, even as often as you can, or a nice chunk of time at the end of the day, whatever you like to work with.
I think it would be wonderful. I know that for myself, to the best that I could, I actually start my day that way.
That's beautiful.
Which is, I'm love, I'm pure, I'm grace, I'm abundant, I'm healthy. You see, and I keep adding. And to me, like, just the way we almost kind of recite a prayer, although for me it's very deliberate, because the thing is, we don't want it to become a recitable thing
it's
that we're not putting a feeling to, because we do want to feel. Just like when we're not, conscious, and we're feeling that we're a failure, that we're not loved, we're not worthy, you know, that we're unlucky. I hear that all the time.
All the time.
Right?
This always happens to me. I'm always this happens. My grandmother used to say this phrase that I love, but it was like, stop it. She'd say, I'm snake bitten. Snake bitten. Every time I get in my car, I get stuck behind this kind of person, you know? And it's like, you know, you know what? You're also good at manifesting there, Nanny. You know?
You know, I love the best analogy that I like to use in regards to these subconscious and conscious thoughts is the universe is always listening. And the universe almost has two containers, if you may. Okay? These containers are collecting your high vibrational manifestations, whether it's through action, thought, or feeling. And there's also a low vibrational. And the universe doesn't have any deciphering as to how you choose to create your reality.
And no judgment.
And so what it does is it has these two containers and it starts to collect. And eventually one of these containers is going to overflow, tilt, and now create the manifestation.
Absolutely.
And that's powerful. Yes? We wonder how things unfold and why things develop. Well, I would love to invite, right? And it's really serious food for thought. Well, does the universe have these containers? Well, if it doesn't have a deciphering and we believe that we're co-creators, because of course, you know, if we don't believe that and that we believe that things happen out of chance, then, you know.
Not really. Yeah, okay,
fine.
We're not here to convince you.
Right. God bless, right.
Right.
However, we believe in that we are co-creators, and we recognize that we co-create through primarily our intentions, our feelings, and our thoughts, our expressions, and our actions.
Those are ancient teachings. That's not this new wave of law of attraction, which, you know, I'm grateful for it to be out in the open more, but it's such a small piece of the puzzle of these ancient teachings that you're talking about.
Absolutely. We've learned this. You know, there's beautiful sacred books and teachings that tell us of this, you know. And so now what we're really trying to do is make it simplified and say, like, look, you know, we may say it in jest to say, like, oh, you know, actually I do this all the time. I say I'm a weirdo, and I become weirder and weirder.
Guilty.
You know, because that's my word to say, like, oh, people can identify with a lot of what I, you know, of what I, my existence, of how I, you know, exist in life. And so I become weirder and weirder. And, you know, that could be a funny example, but when we say
when that turns into like an isolation type thing, it might not be ideal.
I'm not worthy of love. I'm never going to be happy. I'm always sick.
This always happens. I always date the same person.
Right.
I always...
Exactly. I'm always heartbroken, disappointed.
Absolutely. And there's certainly something to look into there. If that truly is happening again and again in your life, where is this coming from? Is it this affirmation that essentially we're kind of doing here? Or is there work that I need to do to bring myself up so that I can achieve my happiness? It is. Right? It is.
You know, going back to that first panel that we talked about, it's been programmed perhaps in our subconscious. You know, a lot of things are learned, behavior, conditioning. And so we learn to sort of say, I'm unlucky, or, you know,
we hear our
I'm always going to be heavy, or I'm always going to be this
There's never
or that.
Enough. That's one that I hear growing up. There's never enough. You're always going to have debt, like that kind of thing.
And so how do we break out of that? Well, we need to become aware. We can't break out of anything that we're not aware of.
Right, absolutely. You got to see the barrier or whatever in front of your face to know, okay, I choose... I have a choice here.
Right.
I'm going to not build that up. I'm not going to feed that that container that I don't want to tip the scales in that direction, but to, you know, put the time aside to affirm or feel. It's not just affirmations. I don't want to confuse. You know, affirmations, I like them, but it's not about, oh, I'm
no, it's about the identity as we started. And identifying with a feeling. We could say, and this is almost like affirmations, I, which has a lot of power. We've learned that from beautiful teachers like Louise Hay, who tried, who did a magnificent job of trying to help us recognize that the I is sacred, of course, and we need to be mindful. Or we could say the body is experiencing some discomfort right now. It sounds a little corny, right? Like, when you really want to say like SW exclamation point, right?
Yeah.
But learning how to express yourself without identification to the self is amazing, because now you're not adapting, and making that,
Taking
which is what you were saying,
right,
making that part of your story, making it part of your life. There's a difference.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And that's a beautiful thing. If you're interested in participating in all the stuff that we're talking about, what we're saying, like, start with awareness and validation to validate how you're feeling, but moving into a, how I call it, adding the good, tipping the scale, setting those intentions and the proper awareness, like deliberately doing things that carve the new pattern or just work with your energy in a better way, so that you start to encompass more of all those beautiful things that you would love in your life and love to see. And it can be so powerful.
It is. It could be life transformational. I would recommend, and they say we could fake it until we make it, and I truly believe in that. A lot of these sacred practices that are transformational, when we start, let's be real.
Yeah, it feels awkward.
It's not like suddenly you really do believe, I'm magical and I'm perfect and I'm divine. But the important part is that when we start saying these gentle affirmations, or we begin the day, we start to reprogram the self-talk that is happening, whether you are aware of it or not.
And your subconscious carries that. And you will see, even if it feels a little awkward at first, I can totally attest to this from a personal perspective or experience, that awkwardness or whatever, I'm this, I'm that. It shows up in your life. It affirms it. Be open to the signs as well. Don't shrug it off like, oh, I don't know if that was true, or oh, I don't know if that was a sign. Yeah, it was. It was an validation of what you're working towards, and let that like go with that flow. Like work with the energy there and not against it. Don't fight what you're trying to create. I see that very often.
I would start with, I'm beautiful, I'm a beautiful aspect of the divine. I am whole. And again, you may not necessarily embrace in totality these statements, that's okay. But what you want to do is to create a very positive list that one day you are going to embrace by virtue of repeating these to yourself and affirming them to yourself and making them part of your consciousness, that's the key. And eventually what will happen is that they will replace
exactly
the programmed automatic thoughts back there that are saying like, you suck, you're never going to be successful.
You're always going to be broke.
You're always going to struggle. You're always going to...
all your friends are going to backstab you all the time. Exactly. All that. It all really adds to it.
I just want to add something else because it just came to me with that. A lot of times we feel that those low vibrational thoughts are like a safety mechanism. That if we remind ourselves of that, then hopefully we're going to protect ourselves from people taking advantage.
It's like a humility almost.
Exactly.
But it's not.
And did you follow that?
Yeah, definitely.
I see that often.
Like misery loves company kind of thing too.
And so we need to sort of like be objective as we do our inner self, like almost like what's that word? Like sheriff work, like what's behind, like what's hiding in there, and be gentle with that, but to be authentic also and say like, are these thoughts or these feelings, do they really serve me? You know?
Yeah.
And is it because I'm self-sabotaging?
Right.
Or fulfilling a prophecy because this is what they taught me? You get?
Right, yeah,
Right.
definitely.
So, yeah.
Keeping in line with identity, there are certain things that we see, Blanca sees very much come up, where we're dealing with past lives, which I know is a bit heavy for some, but it's a really beautiful topic, and I hope you're with us till the end here. We sometimes have or encounter, whether it's a personal thing or someone we're talking to, or a friend, or any type of situation where someone will have an experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm going to pass the mic to Blanca because she certainly can speak very, very in depth on this, but where someone will see themselves as like a Mary Magdalene, maybe a deity, some major, very recognizable Christ, and then come forward, whether this was a dream, a meditation, or any kind of experience that they have of a past life recall, and they think, perhaps is a way to say, that was me, I was that, I am Christ, you know, and that can get a little tricky. Right? I mean,
it definitely can get tricky, and, you know, we remind ourselves and the audience who's watching that, you know, we're not the authority of what's right and wrong, you know, and we're just trying to bring insight and share our observations based, you know, on the work we've done, people we've worked with. But absolutely, and it happens a lot with past lives, as you said. You know, when we're on the spiritual journey, one of the first things that we do, besides start exploring, you know, through meditation, our angels, you know, like there's these levels, right? As we start getting above those levels and really start leaving the body, and, you know, we start tapping into Akashic records, which we will talk about in depth in another, right?
That's a video
discussion,
yeah.
Right? But what happens when we do that is that we do indeed start tapping into aspects of our past lives. And my observation of that, and I take a pretty strong stance in this, is that we will not tap into any past life that will not benefit us in this life. Why? Because if it doesn't benefit us, then why do we need to remember? You know, and in truth, some of us are such old souls, and we've had so many lives that, quite frankly, we wouldn't have the capacity, the mental capacity to retain all of that. We can actually go insane. And so once again, my observation and the work that I do is that we remember only what we need to, that will benefit us and our mission in this timeline.
It's like it presents itself to you.
It does, you know, and in some way, shape, or form, we remember those lives because we need to bring back, if you may, something that is going to be very useful, you know, in this timeline. I feel that we're not here to repeat what we repeated in another timeline. And, you know, that, again, kind of crosses over with another subject, which is karma, you know. But we're not here. We're talking now about our identities. And so if it's beneficial, like for myself, you know, I'm a guru here. I was a guru in another life. I'm not here to repeat what I did, but I definitely had to tap into a past life in order to retain a lot of, I guess, the integrity of what I had, you know, the strength and my own training. And I assimilated that into this lifetime. Am I that person again? No. Do they exist as part of me? Yes. And actually, that's beautiful because that's called expansion. You know? And so how it can play a part in people feeling that they may have been this or that is they may have a glimpse of a life where they interplayed or were part of, say, the Buddha. You know, I'm trying to use an example. And they may have very well been a student or, you know, or someone very important to the Buddha. And could they be the Buddha? Well, who am I to say that they're not? You know? But a lot of times what happens is, and again, this is based on my experience of working with so many people, is that fields, divine energetic fields like the Buddha, like Jesus Christ, like Isis, Mother Mary, are so expansive. And they were also, if we remember, here to transform and help heal humanity. And so that field is still very available because that's what the consciousness of that field is, right? And so what can happen and what does happen a lot of times is that as a individual starts to develop deeper and deeper into their spirituality, they can become a conduit, a vessel, to hold and or to channel an aspect of that expansive field.
It's beautiful.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so here's where it gets really beautiful, because I've met many people who have said to me, and by the way, this may sound funny, or even insane, right?
Sure.
It depends on, right?
Right.
But people have come to me over the years in distress, and have said to me, I believe I was Jesus Christ, or I was Mary Magdalene, or I was Mother Mary.
And you're saying multiple people have said, I was Jesus Christ.
Multiple. And again, who am I to say that they
Sure.
weren't? But in working with them, what I've discovered is that either they were part of that lifetime and had a resonance, a very deep resonance and intimate connection with that deity, and or that through their spiritual work, they've started to become a vessel by which. And that's where I say, well, what difference does it make? And going back to our original, right, portion of the discussion, do we have to identify ourselves? Do you have to be Jesus Christ? Or can you channel and be a vessel by which is just as sacred, by the way?
And it's here and now.
Exactly. And you want to know what? God bless. If you can hold the energy of the Christ, then you are the Christ in that time period that you are being a conduit for it.
And that's so interesting because we can see that even if, again, we're not the one who says, oh, no, you were definitely this and you were not. And, we would never, that's not our place here. But even someone with that type of resonance and who can channel the Christ energy now, it could even be, what I'm trying to say here is even someone who was persecuting the Christ may, and a lifetime now. So I'm not trying to say that you could only be near the Christ to have that kind of experience.
Intimately,
but even if it was, and it was the complete opposite.
Exactly.
But you were there and it transmuted through your lifetimes. I'm just trying to say it's so open. It doesn't have to be this one connection. Like, no, that was me.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
If you're channeling it now, if that's what you're connecting to, if that's what you're working with, and you're bringing that into this lifetime.
And I think that why it's important to be open, to not fall into the identity part, is because if we're at a place where we can hold and be a conduit for a deity of that magnitude, then we don't want the ego to step in the way and obstruct the magnificent healing that can come through the channeling of a great deity like the Buddha, or the Mother Divine, or any of the deities, and so again, do we need to define ourselves? Well, no. How about if we just allow that? And how we're going to know that is both by what is transmitted, because it should be from a place of divine love, and how we feel, and how we feel as we're transmitting that, because it's nirvana to be a vessel by which, you can't, the container is affected. They say it's not, but it is.
Right,
and in this case, it's affected in a beautiful way.
So if you're, you could kind of look at it this way too, just to chew on this idea. If you're going to identify with your past, which there's certainly lessons there. It certainly comes up for a reason. I don't mean that. But if you're going to choose, I was Christ, or, I was this or that or anything, then we have to consider then what impact would the negative things that we've done in the past make if we were choosing to allow things from the past to really come in as part of our identity, like that more, I want to say more concrete, though malleable, but thing that kind of we shape in that way. So it's just something to think about, if you're taking from the past, like, do you discredit then the negative things that we've done that really led us here?
And that's interesting, because, and God bless, there's no judgment in this.
No.
But usually when somebody comes and is claiming to be, Isis, they remember all the good things, like that they were royalty, that they were this, that they were gorgeous, that they were,
adorned with jewels,
right. And you're absolutely right. And there's, no one's life was picture perfect. Not even Christ, and we know that.
Yeah.
Or ancient Egypt. It's not all that, the books show you and, royalty and magic. There was a lot of conflict and a lot of turbulence in these lives. Beheadings and, and all sorts of...
crucifixion.
Right.
And
And so, absolutely. But I also want to remind, and again, this is my personal observation of doing this work for so many years. And so, you don't pick, it picks you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's true,
You know what I mean? Like, in other words, that's like I would say like a red flag. And we're sitting there and saying like, okay, let me see who I want to pick.
Right, no, you can't.
Again, this is through our own development. As we start tapping into those Akashic records and or expanding our fields, that those higher dimensional fields see an opportunity to use someone as a conduit to deliver a frequency and to deliver messages through that field. And so there are very specific, almost like a rule, reasons why this would happen. And it chooses you. One day you may be meditating, or journal writing, or in the process of a healing work, receiving healing, which happens a lot. And you have an aha moment. You have an epiphany. You have a remembrance. And it does happen a lot when you work with a guru, when you're working with a teacher.
Yeah.
Because part of a teacher's work, a guru's, is that as a chela expands, guru will not deliberately make this decision either. It is just all divinely orchestrated, where we have Akashic record seals in our spiritual template, and by virtue of divine insight, a guru will open those seals, activate them, which in turn then releases the memory of Akashic records.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that's the many ways it can happen.
And it's not to say it can't happen on its own, but I mean, personally, I've seen so much more activation come through from working with teachers and people who have walked the walk.
It can happen in so many ways, by the way. If you go on a retreat, if you go on a quest,
losing a parent,
illness,
trauma, even
a trauma. This is a big subject that I'm sure we're going to have a conversation on. But I've seen again and again, including myself, how traumatic illness brought up a lot of actually there were triggers to have a lot of memories of my past lives. And so we stay expanded. There's never one way, or right or wrong way. But we're just sharing to say, like, these are many of the ways where it does usually happen. And more importantly, like, what do we do?
Right.
How do we proceed? What's the highest way that we can proceed when it does occur? And to honor Honor the experience. And I really have to throw that in as well, because I have seen, and again for myself, I remember having memories where it was easier to think of suicide than to embrace what I was remembering. And that was very delicate, because I didn't have anyone to tell me that that was my ego. You see, because the ego goes, oh my God, what? Like you, overwhelming, and
ego gets scared very easily too, right?
It does.
Like questioned.
It does. It becomes scared, overwhelmed. But you know, it also is arrogance. Believe it or not. You know, like oh my God, like
we don't need to change.
How am I gonna do? And you know, like how am I gonna get this out? And what I learned was that a lot of that ego, arrogance, and fear was leading me to almost think of, you know, ending my life. Because, and so I had to do a lot of work, a lot of inner work, a lot of contemplation, and a lot of ego checking to realize that all I needed to do was to embrace that and then become open to sharing it. Because this is a very important message as we're getting this is like the high five part of this, right? The more expansive we become, the more the need to be a vessel to share. Because the more expansive we become as a vessel, we cannot contain all that energy and insight to ourselves. We would go insane. And or we would flip ourselves out of this existence.
Right.
And so all of this insight that comes is really meant to be shared. You know?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest challenges too sometimes. I mean, we're getting from my own ego and wanting to check my ego. And then I would, for even to create something like this, it's like, wait, am I coming off like I know everything? Am I doing that? You know, so, but no, not at all. That's not my point, and that's not from the heart. That's not what I'm doing.
Right.
That's not what we're doing here. And to shine and to share.
Absolutely.
It not only makes it okay for others to do so, but it activates other people along the way. You know?
Without a doubt. And you know, one of the, I'm sure you'll share with me, you'll resonate that one of the endeavors, the greatest endeavors that we have in offering these discussions is to inspire others, to have a voice. Perhaps we offer some inspiration that can help anyone connect the dot for their own mission and calling, and kind of bringing that all full circle, because most of the time when we're on a spiritual journey and we start tapping into all of these different arena spaces, the ultimate goal is going to be of service.
Absolutely.
you know? And there's almost like no running away from that. We need to share it so that then we could trigger and inspire others so they could do the same.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful, and it's almost like a protocol that you need to share, you know, and there's a beauty in it all at once. So.
Right. So
yeah.
Shine your light.
Shine your light.
So to close our discussion here, we thought it would be fun to end every one of these conversations with a card pull. So Blanca and I will each pull a card and give you a little insight. It might not resonate, it might, but just something to think about as you go about your day or anything like that. So I'll shuffle them and allow you to choose, and then maybe go that way. These are beautiful cards that one of our
they're beautiful.
dear friends gave to us.
Just kind of share that.
They're gorgeous.
They're beautiful. Very grounding wisdom in these cards.
Very easy to read too. Not some decks I get, I'm like, ooh, okay. I really need to be grounded for this.
I think it's so appropriate.
Yes.
It is the Milky Way, and it is perspective.
Beautiful.
And I think that's so appropriate because what I feel, it's perspective, which is, honor your, perspective on whatever resonates with you. always explore, or you're invited to explore anything that may have a resonance to you, or that feels, that it's going to be positive, right? And I feel expansiveness here as we're reaching for perspectives to stay open to being expansive, No limitations.
None.
No limitations is what I feel.
And you can even
here.
tie it into the identity. There are no limitations there.
Yes. I love that.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I love it too.
Yes.
Wonderful. Should we do 2 cards, you think?
Absolutely. You have to pick one.
Okay. The mountain, strength. And it takes some courage to have you just create an identity, to release things. We talked about the ego. The ego sometimes does not want to, or will not make it easy for us to release these things, because whether or not we enjoy them, like depression, anxiety, being clumsy, or any of those things, whether or not we enjoy them, we've been able to maintain with them. We're okay with them. So to be strong and to confirm and affirm again and again of the choices that you want to make through your own personal expansion, through your own, you can choose who you are. You can. You can rewrite that. And that takes strength and courage and a sense of grounded and stability in that too. So that's what comes to mind for me.
I love it.
Anything you want to add?
Well, I love everything that you said, and it does take a lot of courage and strength. I see the mountain, though, as a promise that with, as long as you're gentle and yet you continue, endurance, to take steps in that direction, that you're going to reach the mountaintop. We all do.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love it.
We all do.
Wonderful.
Well, many blessings to everyone, and I'm sure that Lune joined me in saying that we're honored and humbled that you've joined us. We would love to know if you enjoyed this in any way.
Questions, I think, would be good too. If you want to leave a question, we might
feel
get
free to ask or to leave us a note of what you felt or what you thought. Yes, and of course, I invite you to leave everyone with our love and our light and our peace.
Yes.
And
exactly.
I love and adore you.
I love you too.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yes, thank you for watching, and we look forward to continuing this project and seeing where it takes us and just shining our light as well,
Absolutely.
And so thank you for allowing us to fulfill part of our purpose, and, please pass it on and do the same in your life in the ways that you serve others. So thank you.